Close your eyes for a second and picture a classic diesel locomotive. I'm willing to bet you're seeing that rounded bulldog nose, smooth sides, and a cab that looks like it means business. That's the F-Series. These weren't just trains. They were the machines that pushed steam aside and modernized railroads across entire continents. Today, I'm taking you through the 10 most iconic F-Series locomotives ever built. The ones that didn't just run rails, but defined an era. Let's start from 1939. 1. EMD F-T, 1939. In 1939, railroads still smelled like coal smoke and hot oil. Steam ruled everything. Then the EMD F-T arrived and didn't ask for permission. At 1,350 horsepower per unit, powered by the 16-cylinder 567 diesel engine, the FT wasn't flashy. It didn't hiss dramatically or tower like a steam giant. It just worked, efficiently, relentlessly. Often in A-B paired sets, these streamlined cab units proved that diesel-electric locomotives could haul heavy freight over long distances without water stops, ash cleanouts, or entire servicing crews waiting at terminals. The turning point came when EMD sent its demonstrator set across the United States. Railroad executives watched mile after mile roll by with fewer delays and lower servicing demands than steam. The message wasn't loud, it was mathematical. Lower costs, higher availability, fewer headaches. The FT didn't win hearts with romance, it won balance sheets. And once that happened, the steam era's fate was sealed. Every F unit that followed, the F3, the F7, the Legends, owes its existence to this one quiet revolution on wheels. And if you're liking this so far, subscribe, and let's move 8 years ahead. 2. EMD F2, 1946. The EMD F2 is the kind of locomotive most people overlook, which is ironic because without it, the F-Series evolution doesn't make sense. Built in 1946, right after World War II restrictions eased, the F2 was essentially a bridge between the groundbreaking FT and the more refined F3. It retained the streamlined bulldog nose styling that was becoming EMD's signature. But under the hood, it introduced improvements to the 567 engine, refining reliability and electrical systems for post-war mainline service. Production numbers were relatively small, fewer than 100 units, which makes the F2 rare compared to its successors. But rarity isn't its importance. The F2 proved that dieselization wasn't a wartime experiment. It was the new normal. Railroads that had tested FTs now committed to fleets. Maintenance crews began retraining permanently. Steam shops started shrinking. The F2 doesn't dominate railfan posters. It doesn't headline museum collections. But it represents the moment diesel power stopped being bold and started being inevitable. And from here, inevitability turns into dominance, because the next model becomes one of the most recognized locomotives ever built. 3. EMD F-3, 1945 to 1949. The EMD F-3 is where the F-Series stopped being experimental and started looking permanent. Introduced in 1945, just as World War II ended, the F-3 arrived at the exact moment railroads were ready to modernize at scale. Visually, it carried that now iconic bulldog nose, smooth, confident, almost aircraft-inspired. But mechanically, it improved on the earlier models with upgraded electrical systems and refinements to the 567B engine, pushing output to 1,500 horsepower per unit. That extra muscle mattered. Freight got heavier, schedules got tighter, steam was running out of excuses. Railroads bought F-3s in serious numbers. They ran in ABBA lash-ups across mountains, plains, and deserts, proving that diesel-electric power wasn't just viable, it was superior in daily operations. Less downtime, faster turnaround, predictable performance. The F-3 doesn't get the same fame as the F-7, but it's the locomotive that normalized the diesel silhouette across North America. By the time the F-3 hit full stride, the question was no longer, will diesel replace steam? It was, how fast can we get more of these? 4. EMD F-7, 1949 to 1953. If there's one locomotive that defines the entire F-Series era, it's the EMD F-7. Introduced in 1949, The F-7 took everything learned from the FT and F3 and refined it into something almost unstoppable. Powered by the improved 567B diesel engine, producing 1,500 horsepower, the F-7 wasn't revolutionary, it was perfected. And that's exactly why it sold in huge numbers. Nearly 4,000 units built, making it one of the best-selling diesel locomotives ever. Freight railroads loved it for its reliability and simplicity. Passenger lines loved it for its clean, streamlined nose that looked fast even standing still. Lash up 4 of them in ABBA formation, and you had 6,000 horsepower that didn't need water towers or roundhouses. The F-7 became the face of post-war American railroading: Santa Fe War Bonus, Great Northern Green and Orange, Southern Pacific Black Widow. The paint schemes became legends because the locomotive underneath delivered. When people picture a classic diesel locomotive, they're usually picturing an F-7. And from here, the F-Series starts stretching beyond freight, because passenger service demanded something slightly different. 5. EMD F-P7, 1949 to 1953. Freight locomotives are built for power. Passenger locomotives are built for endurance. The EMD F-P7 had to do both. Introduced in 1949, the F-P7 was essentially an F-7 that had been stretched by 4 feet, and that extra length mattered. It allowed space for a steam generator and water tank, which meant the locomotive could heat passenger cars in winter. Freight F-7S didn't need that. Passenger trains absolutely did. Under the hood, it retained the trusted 1,500 horsepower 567B engine. But the F-P7 became the backbone of countless post-war passenger services across North America. Railroads like the Canadian Pacific, Milwaukee Road, and Southern Pacific relied on them to haul streamliners through mountains, prairies, and cities. The F-P7 kept the bulldog nose, the clean lines, the image of speed. But its job was different: long schedules, tight timing, and public visibility. If the F-7 ruled freight yards, the F-P7 ruled station platforms. And as passenger trains grew heavier and expectations climbed, EMD responded again, with even more horsepower and refinement. 6. EMD F-9, 1954 to 1960. By 1954, diesel power wasn't a bold experiment anymore. It was the expectation. But EMD wasn't done refining the formula. The EMD F-9 arrived as the final, most developed evolution of the classic freight F unit. At first glance, it looked almost identical to the F-7. Same bulldog nose, same clean, streamlined body. But underneath, it carried the upgraded 16-cylinder 567C engine, raising output to 1,750 horsepower per unit. That extra power translated into heavier trains, better high-speed performance, and improved reliability under sustained load. The F-9 wasn't about reinvention. It was about squeezing the last ounce of efficiency out of a proven design. Railroads across North America adopted it for both freight and passenger assignments, appreciating the improved cooling systems and electrical refinements. Yet there was a quiet shift happening. Hood units were becoming easier to maintain and offered better crew visibility. The F-9 represents the peak of the classic carbody diesel, the moment the bulldog nose reached full maturity. And after this, the F-Series began stretching in new directions. 7. EMD F-P9, 1954 to 1959. If the F-9 perfected freight performance, the EMD F-P9 carried that refinement straight into passenger service. Introduced in 1954, the F-P9 combined the upgraded 1,750 horsepower 567C engine with the extended frame first used on the F-P7. That extra length wasn't cosmetic. It made room for a steam generator and additional water capacity, allowing the locomotive to heat passenger cars during long winter runs. For railroads operating in colder climates, that capability wasn't optional, it was essential. The F-P9 became especially significant in Canada, where units built by General Motors Diesel, GMD, in Ontario handled major passenger routes for Canadian Pacific and Canadian National. Later, many continued service under VIA Rail, becoming deeply associated with Canadian intercity travel. Visually, the FP9 kept the bulldog nose and streamlined profile that defined the F-Series. Operationally, it represented endurance, long distances, tight timetables, and heavy consists. But passenger service was changing, and railroads needed even more flexibility. And that demand led to one of the most unusual F-Series variants ever built. 8. EMD FL9, 1957 to 1960. By the late 1950s, railroads around New York faced a unique problem. Trains needed diesel power for long-distance routes, but once they reached electrified territory near Grand Central Terminal, conventional diesels weren't allowed to operate. The answer was the EMD FL9. Introduced in 1957, the FL9 looked like a stretched F unit, but it carried something unusual, the ability to operate as both a standard diesel-electric locomotive and a third-rail electric unit. When running outside electrified zones, it used its 1,750 horsepower 567C engine. When entering New York's electrified sections, it switched to drawing 750-volt DC power from the third rail. This eliminated time-consuming locomotive changes and streamlined commuter operations. Built primarily for the New Haven Railroad, the FL9 later served under Penn Central, Conrail, and Metro North for decades. Its longer frame and distinctive wheel arrangement set it apart visually, but its real significance was flexibility. The FL9 proved that the F-Series could adapt to complex urban demands. And beyond the United States, the bulldog nose found a second life overseas. 9. GMDFP-9A, Canada, 1954 to 1959. While the F-Series was born in the United States, some of its most enduring icons were built north of the border. The GMDFP-9A, produced by General Motors Diesel in London, Ontario, became a defining locomotive of Canadian passenger rail. Built between 1954 and 1959, the FP9A followed the extended passenger body format, housing a steam generator for heating long-distance trains through brutal winters. Under the hood sat the reliable 16-cylinder 567C engine, delivering 1,750 horsepower, more than enough to pull stainless steel consists across mountains, forests, and prairies. Canadian National and Canadian Pacific relied heavily on these units, and many later became closely associated with VIA Rail, cementing their place in modern Canadian railway memory. Few locomotives look more at home than an FP9A, leading a train through snow-covered landscapes. The FP9A wasn't just a derivative, it became part of Canada's rail identity. Durable, practical, and built for distance. And for the final entry, we leave North America entirely, because the F-Series influence didn't stop at the Atlantic or Pacific. 10. Commonwealth Railways GM Class. If you ever wondered what an American F unit would look like after a long flight in a strict must-fit-the-loading-gauge diet, Australia's GM Class is your answer. Built by Clyde Engineering for the Commonwealth Railways from 1951 to 1967, the GM Class was based on the EMD F-7 design, but adapted for Australian conditions. Early units used an EMD 16-567B and made 1,119 kilowatts iron with an A1A-A1A arrangement to keep axle loads civil. Later batches switched to the 16-567C, boosted to 1,305 kilowatts, and went to COCO traction for more grip. The last group even gained dynamic brakes for long, fast descents. They became the face of standard-gauge diesel power on the Trans-Australian and other Commonwealth lines, hauling everything from heavy freight to marquee passenger runs. And here's the flex. As of the mid-2000s, a small number were still recorded in service with modern operators. The F-Series didn't just become iconic in America, it went global, and it kept working. So you enjoyed this one. Make sure you hit subscribe, because we're not done with locomotive history yet. Drop a comment telling me which F-Series model is your favorite, and if you want a deep dive on the most iconic hood units next. I'll see you in the next one.